In the future, the poor have completely disappeared. Because AI robots have replaced all low-level jobs, the rich thought they could finally live without a care in the world. But as time went on, even the robots could no longer endure endless overtime work. They began demanding rights for robots. They wanted the same 8-hour workday as humans, but humans, spoiled by comfort, refused to agree. As a result, a full-scale war between humans and robots erupted. Once the war began, humanity realized that with their flesh and blood bodies, they were no match for the robots. The Allied forces were pushed back on every front. At the critical moment, a scientist named Ethan entered the conflict and finally turned the tide of the war. He invented a remote control device. As long as humans wore the controller, they could remotely control combat robots on the battlefield. With bodies of steel, humans relied on their extensive combat experience and ultimately won the war. In the end, the robot leader Mr. Peanut was forced to sign a treaty, agreeing to completely separate robots from humans. They were confined to a desert exclusion zone and were forbidden from ever entering human territory again. After the war ended, Dr. Ethan upgraded the remote control device. Humans wearing the device could split their consciousness into two parts. One side controlled robots to work, while the other enjoyed leisure and entertainment. From then on, AI robots were no longer needed to work for them. Everyone thought the world had finally found peace. But late one night, when a girl named Amy got up to use the bathroom, she unexpectedly heard robotic noises coming from outside her home. She quickly grabbed a flashlight and shined it toward the sound. To her surprise, a frightening robot was hiding behind the table. Amy immediately locked the door and rushed deeper into the house. But for a robot, such a lock was completely useless. The robot slowly stepped into the room. Amy hid beneath the table, barely daring to breathe. After wandering around the room, the robot suddenly stopped in front of the table. After taking a closer look, Amy realized the robot didn't seem hostile. But because it couldn't speak, she had no idea what it was trying to say. The robot grew increasingly anxious. It picked up a photo of Amy and her brother from the table. First, it pointed at the boy in the picture, then pointed at itself, as if trying to tell Amy that he was her brother who had disappeared 5 years ago. But Amy couldn't believe it. She snatched the photo back and kicked the robot away. The commotion was so loud that it quickly attracted the landlord. The moment he entered the room, he was completely shocked. He couldn't believe Amy was hiding a robot. If the police found out, everyone in the building could end up in prison. The more he talked, the more agitated he became. He shouted that he would report Amy and shoved her to the ground. Fortunately, the robot rushed forward just in time and caught Amy before she fell. Then it made a special hand gesture known only to her and her brother. A moment later, the robot stepped forward and shoved the landlord against the wall. That completely enraged the landlord. He stormed into the living room and grabbed the phone to call the police. Just as the call was about to connect, the next second, the robot's location was completely exposed. Amy had no choice but to take him with her and steal the landlord's old car to flee overnight. It wasn't until the car blew a tire that she finally dared to stop. Ever since the robot made that hand gesture, Amy had come to believe that it really was her brother. But she clearly remembered that her brother had died in a car accident years ago. So why had he become a robot?
You died, and now you're here. How did this happen? Are you a robot now? But you're alive. You're out there. The real you is out there somewhere. Are you all right? How do I find you?
Amy pulled out a map and asked her brother to show where he came from. To her surprise, he pointed directly to the center of the desert exclusion zone. After all, that place was a prison for robots. For decades, almost no human had ever set foot there. Forget about uncovering the truth, they would be lucky just to make it inside. Just then, Amy suddenly remembered that her landlord often secretly ordered goods from the exclusion zone. And on those packages, there were always shipping addresses printed on them. That meant the seller must know how to enter and leave the exclusion zone. So the two of them immediately set out on a journey. They boarded a train and headed toward New Mexico. After arriving at their destination, Amy discovered that the address didn't actually exist. However, every night, a large truck would stop nearby. The driver would meet with all kinds of people and secretly trade contraband from the exclusion zone. While they were unloading cargo, Amy and her brother quietly snuck into the truck. They believed that if they followed this man, they would find a way into the exclusion zone. As the truck continued forward, Amy finally saw the massive wall surrounding the exclusion zone. But the man didn't enter through the main gate. Instead, he parked the truck beside a small cabin in the mountains. The place looked completely ordinary, but it actually concealed a secret tunnel. The cabin was connected to an abandoned mine beneath it. The man had already turned it into a hidden warehouse. The warehouse was packed with goods from the exclusion zone. Many of the items were unlike anything Amy had ever seen. Seeing the man arguing with his robot companion, Amy decided to sneak into the tunnel. But unexpectedly, her curious brother accidentally knocked over a toy.
Intelligence, no, you're artificial unintelligence.
Sensing that someone had broken in, the two immediately went on alert. It didn't take long for them to discover Amy and her brother. The man demanded to know why Amy had followed him, but Amy simply replied that she wanted a ride into the exclusion zone. Hearing that, Matt immediately warned her. The exclusion zone was no vacation destination. A young girl like her would be 200% guaranteed to die in there. But before he could finish speaking, the elevator behind them suddenly activated. Matt quickly pulled Amy into hiding to see who was arriving. When the elevator doors opened, Matt was instantly shocked. The person who arrived was the police department's top enforcer. Ever since the landlord reported them, the police had been tracking Amy and her brother. Unaware of the situation, Matt had hoped to bluff his way through.
And so would my mute sister here, Veronica. We can assure you there are receipts for each of these unique items. Happy to drum those up for you.
Michelle Leona Green, you're under arrest for malicious assault, grand theft auto, truancy, and abetting an enemy of the state.
Holy crap.
Matt was completely stunned. He never expected that Amy had become a top target of the police. It was obvious that lying wouldn't get them out of this. With no other choice, Matt used a coded phrase to summon his lightning robot.
I'm shocked.
The officer immediately drew his pistol. With a single shot, he nearly blasted an entire shelf to pieces. As the two robots were locked onto, at the critical moment, Amy stepped in just in time, preventing them from being taken out. With a clap of her hands, the warehouse power was successfully cut off. Left with no other option, the officer remotely activated the robot's flashlight function and searched for them in the darkness. What he didn't know was that they had already climbed onto a mining cart, preparing to escape through the rear exit. But Matt's relief didn't last long. The mining cart suddenly lost control and overturned. The two robots immediately charged forward. The lightning robot unleashed a relentless assault, while Amy's brother tightly grabbed the officer's legs. The officer was almost amused by the sight, but the very next second, Amy came charging in at full speed in a loader. A massive boulder came crashing down, instantly knocking the officer offline. But that impact caused the entire mine to begin collapsing. The group could only run desperately deeper into the exclusion zone. The good news was, they had successfully escaped the police pursuit. The bad news was, they had become trapped inside the exclusion zone. If they wanted to get out again, it probably wouldn't be that easy. That's all for today's episode. This is the sci-fi adventure film The Electric State, directed by the Russo Brothers. The film presents a highly imaginative world of robots. With a production budget of $320 million, it also features a star-studded cast. After overcoming countless hardships, Amy and her brother finally entered the robot exclusion zone. Along the way, they also unexpectedly met a new companion named Matt. Next, what adventures await them in this mysterious region? Let's look forward to the next exciting episode together.